Hi guys, this is Vo. I bought this RGB cooling hat by Yahboom, and for basically the fan and the OLED display and the exposed pins. And I meant to put it on this thing on the back of my display, but it's not going to work because to mount the fan on, you actually need to use their mounting screws. I guess you can technically put it on, but it won't be very securely fastened. So I don't know. Basically, you'll have to use their screws that they provided and the mountain that they provided to basically hold up the fan, because the fan, even though it uses the pin, will topple over quite a little bit on the left side. So anyway, yeah, so just it's pretty easy to put together. In fact, actually putting it together is probably the easiest part of this. All you have to do is line up the pins to their pins, and you should have a working fan, providing you run the script. And the scripts are actually what is the hardest part of this, putting this and activating it. Okay, so once you mount the bottom of the Raspberry Pi, you'll have to secure the top, and it's the same thing. They provide you four extra screws for the top, which you'll use to, secure the fan in place. And you don't want to do it too tightly because you want it a little loose, so that it's just there to kind of hold that in place while you put the rest of the screws in, and you don't have to do it too tightly for now. You'll definitely want to secure it once all four screws are on the top. So I thought about using my old case for this to hold down the bottom to protect the bottom pins. But it's not going to seat correctly because, I mean, if you can see the holes there that fits through, but it's kind of floppy because there's little bumps on the bottom of the case, which I'm gonna have to go in and sand down to get it a little more flat, so that the plastic is touching the actual board. So yeah, otherwise it looks good. At the moment, I'm not gonna have a case for this. Basically, I'm gonna have to look for a case big enough to hold this in place. Maybe I'll just keep this case on the bottom and then zip tie it and to keep it. But anyway, that's something to consider, because you won't be using any of your existing case with this fan mount, because it uses the four holes. Okay, so the hardest part of this is to actually run their scripts, and you'll need to uh, FTP into the Raspberry Pi and dump their files, and then you'll be able to run the lights. Once you run the lights, then you'll run their OLED display. And this is, like I said, this is the hardest part of getting this to work. You might have an easier time, but I had a little trouble following the instruction. But if you follow the instruction, it should work out correctly. So I have my OLED working with the lights flashing because I'm running a different light script that they had. They give you options, but basically the two that you want is the OLED and the fan. The lights are optional. If you want to turn that on, it's cool. It is actually really cool looking, so you can keep it on. All right, so I have everything running. The fan is running, the lights are working, and the OLED is running. Basically, those are the three you'll need. There's other additional optional scripts that they have on the website, but you don't need any of them. You just want the temperature control, the OLED, and basically the lights, and that's it. Okay, okay, guys. So this is kind of like a final thought on this whole thing. It wasn't easy to get it up and running, but once it got running, I think it's actually pretty cool. The instructions are not very clear, and so basically, you want to go to yahboom.net /study/RGB underscore cooling underscore hat, and there is a instructions and tutorial for you to go through. Now, they're not. They're just gonna assume you know a few things, such as how to use WinSocket to get into your Raspberry Pi. But it's pretty easy to do. All you have to do is on your Raspberry Pi, you have to type in hostname minus L or minus I, and it should tell you your IP address. And from there, you'll type in your IP address, which is 192.168. Whatever your Raspberry Pi is under. And then you'll log in as Pi, and then the default password is a Raspberry. But however, if you've changed your password, then you would know your own password. So it'll be the user is Pi. And anyway, once you log in, you can transfer files directly into the Raspberry Pi, and from there you can follow the instruction by unzipping the files and then running their little terminal codes, which is I mean, it doesn't. It's you just got to be really comfortable with command lines. So if you are, it's probably not going to be that hard. But basically, you need to also install and clone something called WiringIP or WiringPi. And basically, like I said, just follow their instructions: step 1, step 2, step 3. And like I said, the only two thing you actually really need is to turn on the fan, and which is temperature control, and then you'll also want to turn on your OLED display. And basically, those are the only two that I think is the most important. And then there's the lights. You can turn on the lights and stuff like that. There's different options too. So basically, you can also run it where at a certain temperature, if it hits a certain temperature, it turns on the fan. And then so if you don't like a noisy fan, but I've run the fan, and the fan is actually doesn't sound as loud as some other fans I've heard. So that's a good thing. And then you can also, and the lights will only come on when the fan kicks in or something like that. But if you want the fancy lights, just leave on the lights. So basically, I think the first 3 scripts that they walk you through, just run those, and then you'll be fine. And then there's also another option where you put it in your bootloader, so when you boot up, it runs those scripts automatically. And like I said, it's all in their instructions. Like I said, I had a really hard time following it, and if I had a little hard time following it, you might actually might even have the same problem as I did. And so this really isn't recommended for those who aren't familiar with terminal windows or CDing into directories and stuff like that. I believe you can actually run the GUI or the graphical user interface and download the all the data and stuff from their screen and maybe run it on an easier. But I didn't do it that route. I just follow the terminal route. So so I don't know. Maybe you'll have an easier time. But like I said, I personally don't really recommend it for kind of novelists such as myself. I'm not like a huge Raspberry Pi person. So but I did get it to work. So that's an amazing thing. Anyway, it's like I said, I don't really recommend it if you're just new to this. It does look really cool though, and the display is actually the coolest thing because it gives you really useful information such as the CPU status, the temperature of the CPU, the RAM it's using, the disk space it's using, and it also displays your IP address at all time, which I think is actually really cool. Even if I don't need all the information, I like to glance at it and then see the display. The OLED is actually really, really. It's hard to describe, but it's really vibrant and it's a really good display for that size. I mean, I was skeptical at first, but once I saw the display, it was pretty cool. And then the fonts are really readable and everything like that, despite the small fonts. But yeah, like I said, I think it's really cool, but not recommended for newbies such as myself. So, um, what else? But yeah, if you feel like actually you can take on this, yeah, definitely go for it. I do recommend maybe looking into getting a case that could accommodate the extra size. So that's my something I'm gonna look into next.